Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And on Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. You may own your favorite movies digitally or on physical media. However, when they air on your cable TV or your streamer, you love what you're watching so much, you can't get off that couch. And that's the definition of what this show is all about. My name is Kevin. I'll be your host for this Couch Potato Theater. And we are proud to celebrate Rockstar 2001, starring Mark Wahlberg and Jennifer Aniston. But I've got some guests. And first of all, I'd like to introduce my brother from another mother, also the co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's going on, brother?
Oh, excuse me. I've just been partying all night. I just made my debut. I fell down some stairs and yeah, I'm here because I'm a professional and it's what I do.
Now, before we introduce our other guest here, Kyle, this was your idea, actually, to do a Couch Potato Theater / crossover with another show talking about Rockstar, which is one of my favorites. What made you decide to bring that up? And even though I'm the hair metal guy, you know.
Well, but here's the thing: it's movies and music go hand in hand, and this is one of those movies where, you know, Rockstar is such a fun film, in my opinion, and you add in, it's got great music. It's got it takes an interesting time in the period of hair metal and certain aspects of hair metal that I think just are great and what makes hair metal so much fun and so amazing. And it just seemed like a natural fit to talk about the movie here. And then, Kevin, we're crossing the streams at the Fandom Podcast Network because it is crossover. And because you and our next guest are going to be talking about the soundtrack of Rockstar on the Hair Metal Podcast.
Yes, my co-host and fellow metalhead is joining us for Couch Potato Theater, Rockstar, Mr. Michael Simmer. What's up, buddy?
What's up, gentlemen? How you doing? I was going to wear red lapels, but everybody knows that Bobby Beers has never worn red lapels.
They were blue.
Blue. That would have been such a poser move. Yes. So as Kyle was referring to, Mike, you're my co-host of the Hair Metal Podcast, and we are going to be doing a crossover with hair metal, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But it was like, well, first of all, we got to talk about the film first. We got to talk about Rockstar. And yeah, here we go, Rockstar. We got the original poster there showing up. But as you know, this is the Fandom Podcast Network, and when it comes to our 80s and what we look like, Mike, did you look like a metalhead? Did you dress with the long hair? You know?
Oh yes. I had super long hair, teased. My senior picture was my hair barely fit on the actual picture. Touching the sides.
I need to see that picture. I really do.
I have it here in the house. If you're lucky, I'll bring it up for the ending. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Kyle, how long did you ever grow your hair?
Not very long, because believe it or not, when you're living in Alaska and it's like 40 below and you have longer hair, it has a tendency to freeze.
Oh, and brittle and break off, right? Yeah.
Yeah. you would
well,
think, you think warmth, but sometimes not so much.
Well, I dabbled in music and playing in a band, and I had the hair. Check that out, Mike. What'd you think of that? Look at that.
Nice.
Long hair.
Nice.
Long.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna shut my camera off for 1 second. I'm gonna run this picture because it'll take me about 3 seconds.
Oh, please do. Please do. Yeah, this
how long that hair. I've never seen Reitzel in person with the long hair.
Yeah,
you can't get it that long again, can you?
I probably could if I wanted to. And if you're listening to this podcast and not watching it, please check out the YouTube channel, because I'm showing up a nice choice picture of me in the early 90s with my Les Paul. Hold on. Let's check out Mike here.
That's my high school senior picture right there.
Oh my God. You have it parted in the middle too, and you got the stash. Look at that beautiful man.
Yep.
So wait, what year was that? When was that taken?
That was 1988.
Wow.
Yeah.
So again, I just want to say
that is gorgeous.
At this moment, I'm going to recognize our sponsor, Aquanet.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, he's got no Aquanet. That thing is that thing's feathered though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there was some. No, I mean it's my senior picture, so there was some spray going on there. I'm sure.
Oh, that's fantastic! I love that, man. Yeah, I had to show this one here, but I want to ask you guys a question. I'm going to show another picture here. Can you tell me who this is?
Oh God, somebody who really wants to be Axl Rose.
Yeah.
That is me dressed up as Axl Rose doing a lip sync video to Patience.
That's fantastic.
My friend Jen drew on the fake tattoos, and I did my best to do the little Axl wig and the backwards hat with the bandana. Yep, there you go.
That's fantastic.
And there's a reason why I'm bringing this up, and I'll mention that a little bit later. But as we mentioned, guys, this is Rockstar 2001. Of course, here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We do have a few other things on the network, especially some other couch potato theaters. Make sure you go back and check out our Return of the Jedi that we did last year, and it was celebrating its 40th anniversary. We also celebrated the 40th anniversary of Valley Girl, where my wife and I went down to the 40th anniversary screening in Hollywood. We also got to meet actress Deborah Foreman. She was there at the screening. We also did Pixels from 2015, the Adam Sandler film, and did a movie career retrospective of his. And more recently, of course, we did Couch Potato Theater Demolition Man and Tombstone. Both were celebrating its 30th anniversaries last year. And we also did Hard Target, of course, celebrating its 30th anniversary. Kyle?
I was just going to say, and I'm sorry, guys, the Van Damme mullet and that destroys both of your hair.
Hey, ours aren't mullets. You can't compare mullets with men. There's a difference there, Kyle.
When you're talking about one of the greatest hairdos of all time in Hard Target,
you cannot compare mullets and manes. Two different things. For Christmas, we also did the holiday special where we covered Elf on Couch Potato Theater, and we also did Payback, Mel Gibson, and we just did for Valentine's Day Wimbledon. That just came out as well. And Kyle, coming soon, of course, we have Pacific Rim, doing a little discussion on Godzilla -1 and some Kaiju Monsterverse discussion. We're working on that soon. Mike, did you see Godzilla -1?
Loved it. Absolutely adored it.
So
it was the best Godzilla movie. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I saw a good Godzilla movie because they've all been terrible. They've all been Americanized, but the Japanese know how to do Godzilla movies for sure.
This is true. Yeah, it's good. We'll be discussing.
There's a reason I knew I liked you, Mike.
We will be discussing Couch Potato Theater. Of course, Pacific Rim. We'll be discussing kaijus in general, and then also we're going to be doing Time Cop from 1994 because it is celebrating its anniversary this year as well. But as I mentioned, Mike, you and I. Next recording of the Hair Metal podcast, we're going to be discussing the actual soundtrack of this fake band that they put together with real rock stars and did real songs and came out with a pretty awesome good metal album. So we'll be discussing that on the next Fandom Podcast Network's Hair Metal podcast. So we're looking forward to that.
Very cool.
All right. Yeah. This is Rockstar, though, the movie, Couch Potato Theater 2001. And let's go ahead and get into some plot description here. All right. Chris Cole was born to rock. His longtime girlfriend, Emily, believes his talent could take him all the way. But Chris worships at the altar of Bobby Beers, the fiery frontman of the heavy metal legend Steel Dragon. By day, Chris lives at home with his parents and spends his day repairing copy machines. But when Chris takes the stage, fronting Pennsylvania's premier Steel Dragon tribute band, all of that disappeared. Chris Cole is Bobby Beers, mesmerizing audiences with his perfect imitation of Beers, electrifying vocals. The night his bandmates boot him out of the group, Chris is devastated until an unexpected phone call changes his life forever. He, Chris Cole, has been tapped to replace Bobby Beers as the lead singer of Steel Dragon. In an instant, Chris rockets to the dizzying heights of sudden stardom, rising from a devoted to icon, from rock fan to rock god, the wannabe who got to be. So what happens when an average guy gets everything he wants and discovers it's not enough? And the movie taglines for this were the story of a wannabe who got to be, every guy wants to be you, every girl wants to be with you, and dream big, live the life. Now, guys, as you may know, this was inspired by a true story. Inspired by the real life story of Tim Ripper Owens, singer in the Judas Priest tribute band, who was chosen to replace singer Rob Halford when he left Judas Priest. After the New York Times ran a story on Tim Ripper Owens in 1997, various Hollywood studios ran to option the filming rights. Warner Brothers won the bid and hired John Stockwell to write the script. Stockwell soon began researching the heavy metal music and tribute band scene and visited Owens' hometown of Akron, Ohio. Afterwards, the project, under the working title Metal God, got the involvement of George Clooney's newly founded Maysville Pictures. Brad Pitt signed on to star in 1998, but wound up dropping the project following creative differences with the studio. Eventually, Mark Wahlberg, a former rapper with Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, who co-starred with Clooney in Three Kings, was hired for the main role in May of 1999. Stephen Herek signed to direct in October, and in the following month, Jennifer Aniston became attached for the main female role, while Callie Curry was hired to revise the script. Wahlberg spent 5 months preparing for his role as Chris Cole, working with a vocal coach, growing his hair, attending the metal scene, and wandering around Los Angeles in character. A concert scene was shot at the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena before 10,000 Metallica and Megadeth fans. While filming one Steel Dragon performance, the crew pranked Wahlberg by playing Marky Mark's Good Vibrations instead of a rock track, and footage of this feature during the film's ending credits, so you can see that. It's a lot of fun. By 2001, Warner renamed the project from Metal God to Rockstar in order to attract a broader rock fandom for just metal fans. All right, guys, this is an open discussion about the film. Mike, I want to start with you, sir. When and where did you first see this film, and what impact did it have on you?
I did not see it in the theaters. I know that. I'm trying to think of back to when I first saw it. It must have been on HBO or something like that, or maybe I even got the DVD, ran the DVD from Blockbuster, which is an old-timey phrase now. I knew it was the story of Tim Ripper Owens when I saw it, so I kind of went in with it, sort of not upset, but frustrated. It wasn't actually the actual story, which I thought was an actual story,
right?
Which I thought was the actual better story. I liked it. I noticed a lot of people in it when I first saw it, but I felt that it was a little bit over the top and a little bit, things happened so fast in this. It would have been better I always felt it would have been a little bit better if they would have strung it out a little bit more. It seems like everything happens in the course of a month. And I liked it immediately, just basically because of the music and because of the content and what it was about. So I always liked it, and I always, when it's on, whenever I see it on, one of those movies that I always turn it on when I see it.
Gotcha. Kyle, what about you?
I saw this when it came out on video from rental. I didn't get a chance to catch it in the theaters. If I remember correctly, it didn't have that long of a run in theaters, but I also remember it had one heck of a marketing campaign before it. I remember.
Well, there's a quick reason for that. I can tell you right now. This just released before 9/11.
Yeah,
and the theater draw dropped drastically, as you can imagine, after 9/11. And so that was part of the reason why this movie didn't sustain in theaters as well.
So, but I remember seeing it, and I'm a Mark Wahlberg fan anyway, so usually I'll give anything to check it out. I thought this movie was, like I said at the top, this is a very fun movie. And yes, I agree with what Mike said. It does feel very fast paced, like it, even though they have that montage scene where it goes through like about a year or so of them, but everything with this movie is very condensed and very tight, and it does feel like it's all happening within a very short span. But What I also find interesting too with this particular film, and what I liked about it was the aspect of the great music covering the metal scene, but also it really did kind of start addressing that period where metal was going to Seattle, and it was changing from metal to the grunge sound in a way, and it was kind of a little bit of an undercurrent in this, and also just the fact this is kind of one of those movies. It's not the deepest of plots, and it very much is a very circular film in the aspect of how things play out with the characters, but it's just you could tell they were just having so much fun and they put the energy into it, and that's what made it so enjoyable.
I think I saw this in the theater because this opened up the weekend before 9/11. 9/11 happened, I believe, like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, if I remember correctly. And I remember being curious about this film. If not, I know I saw it on video soon after, but it's very fuzzy of when I remember actually seeing it in the theater. But I enjoyed it right away. And I kind of like the fact that everything kind of happens right away, and happens quickly. It does lend to the film itself and seeing how quickly things happen for Chris Cole. Because, when I think about all the other bands that lost lead singers, sometimes it takes a little while to find a new one, whether it's AC/DC or, I think they happen kind of quickly, actually, with AC/DC, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, you have, Vince Neil leaving Motley Crue. And it seems like about a year later, John Corabi's album with Crue came out. It seemed like, I may be not remembering exactly, but I liked how it kind of sped forward a little bit. I like the appeal of that. Mike, did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, there's the speed forward, but I also felt like, when I watched it again just recently, and I didn't realize how short it was. It clocks in at under 2 hours, which a movie that's under 2 hours nowadays is a rarity. But then I watched it again and I thought, oh, this is why some of the things didn't hit with me, because there's a lot of questions that I wanted to answer in this, which I'll get into later. There was a lot of characters that I thought were interesting, but sort of glossed over.
Right.
And then I thought, oh, wait, I want to find out more about that. And I know they were going for just the chaotic lifestyle of it all. These are the people that come in and out of this world.
Yeah.
But I would have liked them to focus more on some certain characters.
I get that. And there was definitely a lot of characters in this. I did want to touch on the main timeline. So this takes place, it starts off in Pittsburgh in the 80s, as it mentions on the screen. And I'm going to hit with you on that in just a sec, Mike. But Steel Dragon was playing April 12th, 13th, and 14th. I'm assuming the sold out shows if we're going to be opening up for 3 shows. So obviously they're very popular when Chris and his friends go to the concert. And the timeline during that kind of montage when they first hit the main tour, because I also was looking at the manager's tour jacket, because it says Steel Dragon Living the Life 1985. It starts from June of 1985 and goes through June of 1986. So that tour on that album lasts for about a year, which is about average for most bands that are promoting an album and they go on a tour and stuff like that. But Mike, I want to touch on this now because location, it starts off and takes place in Pittsburgh. And dude, you're from Pittsburgh area, right?
I am. And there are some now I understand that it was filmed mainly in Toronto, but when I just
actually it was Washington. It was Washington. Yeah.
When I watched it again the other night, there are some establishing shots that they did of Pittsburgh. Some bridges, some things here and there. So I don't know if they were if those were footage they were just footage that they had, or
they might have sent a second unit just to get some Pittsburgh.
Probably second unit, just some establishing shots. But I could tell you, the metal scene was huge in Pittsburgh in that time. It was. Pittsburgh was a big metal town at that point. I grew up, I would have been, if we're talking 84, 85, I would have been in my teen years. And it was big then. I don't know if a tribute band would have sold out a steel mill. But it was big, but it was big.
So speaking of that, I do want to discuss cover band versus tribute band, because for some people, they may not know the difference. And as I've gone forward and been to a lot of bands, I've gone to a lot of tribute bands. And I remember one of the first ones I remember seeing was actually in the was it early, maybe mid 2000s, late. Yeah. I saw Appetite for Destruction, of course, a Guns N' Roses tribute band. I've seen the Iron Maidens, all lady Iron Maiden tribute band. Basically, a tribute band is different from a cover band, is that usually they play all of the songs of one particular band. They might try to dress the part, maybe act the part of each of the characters in there. And because I remember when I saw the Appetite for Destruction band, you had the guy dressed like Slash, you had the guy dressed like Axl, and then I even saw a David Lee Roth Van Halen tribute band called, I think it was 1984. They all looked and acted and dressed the part, where a cover band doesn't really dress the part, and they play covers from other bands as well, not just one particular band. Am I hitting it right on the mark there, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. I you know, the one of the things that I thought was, I don't know when tribute bands became big or became big business, but I don't remember a lot of tribute bands in the 80s.
No.
I really don't. I mean, cover bands were everywhere.
Yeah.
But a band that dedicated strictly to one band, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, maybe Kiss. I have a feeling like Kiss was covered by fans. There might have been early Kiss tribute bands and such. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But I just wanted to go over the difference between a cover band and a tribute band. And I wanted to ask you guys with this, and Kyle, I want to start with you on this. You know, there's a scene where, and I have a picture up here of Steel Dragon with Chris Cole after he just replaced Bobby Beers. And as we know, Chris Cole idolized Bobby Beers and, of course, knew everything about Steel Dragon. And we get that scene in the beginning of the film where he's getting on his guitar player, played by Timothy Olyphant, about getting that squeal right on the guitar, and how then they go at it later on about how they're accusing him of being mental, that he's too scared to write his own songs. And even Blas Elias, who's a real drummer for Slaughter, is the drummer for his tribute band, says, quote, "If you're going to make it in this business, you have to write your own tunes." Kyle, what did you think about it? Do you think Chris Cole was just in a bubble pretending to be someone else, and that was where he wanted to live, and he was afraid to do originals? Because the reason why I'm asking is a lot of bands that do this tribute stuff or cover popular bands, they get fans in the door because of those songs so they can squeeze in their originals. Your thoughts?
I think in Chris Cole's case, he was the last one to mature. He was stuck in that He was stuck in that fantasy. That's what he wanted to be. And he was still in complete idol worship, while maybe his other bandmates were like, you know what? We want to be able to express our own individuality here, our own styles, our own music. And with him, it was, I don't want to say he was mentally. I just think it was maturity. I think it was a maturity issue with him. He hadn't grown up enough. He was still in that idol worship complete phase, while his other bandmates kind of were growing out of it. Plus, if we're going to be honest, he was probably had the most talent of anybody within that band, so he kind of felt like he could probably dictate too. So it's kind of one of those things. But again, as the movie plays along, we see what happens with him and what he goes through, and he finally goes through that experience. And he's even had at one point where he says, "Man, I owe Rob an apology."
Yeah, it's funny too, because during that scene, Mike, when things are going down, if you've been in a band, you're willing to put up with some band members' shortcomings if they've got enough equipment.
Mike, if they bring in the PA, if they bring in a PA and stuff, they're going to be in the band. Yeah.
What is your thought on Chris's mental situation at that time? Hero worship
situation, but the first 5 minutes really shows you. I think there's a reason for the first 5 minutes where he's playing with his younger sister and the way that he treats his mother. I think it's establishing that he's a nice guy, right?
Yeah.
That he's a pure nice guy who's just a fan of this band. And I think, when I don't think he has a competitive bone in his body because he's just a nice guy. So when his band members are saying we need to kick it up a notch, I think he's just like, hey, I'm cool with what my life is here, and I'm just this nice guy. And he's idolized. He has a good girl on his side, right? And he has sort of some fans in his band, and for his cover tribute band. but I think it's just because he's a nice guy that really, because everything that happens, I think, in there is he's just naive and nice. It could be a maturity level too, but he's naive and nice.
Good point, Kyle.
I want to add, because I think Mike hit a point too. He's living the life. He's in a band. He's basically in town famous almost.
He's got an insanely hot girlfriend.
Yeah, he's got Jennifer Aniston on his arm. What does he have to complain about? I mean, his parents are very supportive of him. They're understanding of him. He's got a brother
except for his brother who likes Air Supply.
Yeah, he's got. But the only reason why his brother is riding his case is because he's probably jealous that he's living the life he wishes he could have.
I know. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I can understand where Chris is at the time, because during this time of music, I idolized so many rock stars. And there was a place, and when I showed you that picture of me dressed up as Axl Rose, there was a place on our main street called Twist and Shout, where you can go in and lip sync to your own tape that you brought in and make a video. You can make your own little video on a VHS for like $30. Or you could go in and record a cheap demo and then lip sync to your own music and make your own video. And that's what we did. Me and my buddies, we would dress up as rock stars and go in, and I've got quite a few of those that a lot of you are never going to see. But, I can understand, but I was in reality, I had a job, but I didn't let it get to me,
It was that time period too. It was, Rock Idol status was huge back then, with MTV in full blowout, and people just had that desire to be a rock star. I don't see it today in today's kids.
Yeah.
I don't see them. They're more worried about being, how can I be an influencer?
Yeah, it was a different time. We had MTV, and they were playing up to this, and we were treating them as gods and stuff like that. So yeah, and by the way, speaking of, this is a pop cultural impact moment here. I want to mention, because I found an article published by rockmusicrevival.com by Dylan Elijah. 8 rock legends you may have had no idea that were in the movie Rockstar. Now, I actually found a couple more, but I did want to bring this to light, guys. And most of us know who these people are if you're, fans of this movie. But some of you watching or listening to this podcast may not know that there are some legitimate rock stars. But let's start with the obvious here, guys. Mark Wahlberg was Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. And he had a hit called Good Vibrations, and he was an underwear model as well. Yes, Kyle?
One of the greatest one-hit wonder songs of all time.
Yes.
I mean, did he even have a follow-up song to it? I'm trying to remember.
There was at least one that they did that had a little bit of run, but nothing top. I mean, Good Vibrations was freaking everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, he was hitting the MTV scene, and he was very, very popular.
There's a great podcast. Where are the Funky Bunch now?
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, their album "Music for the People" and that hit, of course, "Good Vibrations." We got to mention the obvious here, that he has been in the music industry. Next, we have, and a lot of people may not know this, and I didn't realize this till later. The scene where Chris Cole and his girlfriend go to the audition. There's a singer that's singing, and then he's leaving. Well, for those of you that don't know, that is Ralph Sens, aka Michael Starr, the lead singer of Steel Panther. Did you know this one, Mike?
I'm just learning this right now. I saw it when I watched it last night. I saw him walk out, and I thought, that guy looks familiar, but then I thought, I can't be anybody because I would have heard about it already. But this is the first time I've heard that, which is awesome.
Have you seen Steel Panther?
I have never had the opportunity to see.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I should have, but I never have had the opportunity to.
I saw Steel Panther at the Key Club, which I think was formerly known as Gazzari's, there on the Sunset Strip. They're still playing. They're not necessarily a parody band, but what they do is they play a lot of metal songs from the 80s, but they also do original music, and they're hilarious on stage, and they play up to that, and it's a fun show. Make sure you check out Steel Panther. Next one is this is young Thor, the other upcoming wannabe rock star that Chris Cole notices at one of the Steel Dragons concerts, and when he realizes that he's had enough, and Chris Cole, he's kind of famous, guys. I don't know if you know this. This is Miles Kennedy. He's called Thor in the movie, but in real life, he's Miles Kennedy from Boston. He's a veteran rock singer for years of experience playing with such bands as Alter Bridge, Slash, and even at one point being slated to becoming the singer for Velvet Revolver, which I don't think really came to fruition. But he plays in Slash's band, the Snake Pit, the Conspirators, and he's got a fantastic voice. I'm assuming you knew this, Michael, right?
I did know that, and I
Yes.
wonder whatever happened to Velvet Revolver. It's a good band, and I know there's a couple people who tried out for it, and then I guess they just gave up on it.
Kyle?
I just want to say I love this because I knew who this was because I am a huge Alter Bridge fan. I love Alter Bridge. I have all their albums. And I'll be in the offshoot of Creed too, which Creed is making a comeback if you kind of pay attention to what's going on. But Alter Bridge is a phenomenal band if you have not listened to them.
Miles Kennedy is one of the best singers out there. He is fantastic. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, Velvet Revolver was the other band that Slash and members of Guns N' Roses did without Axl. And I saw them once in Virginia, and they were fantastic. Mike, did you ever get a chance to see Velvet Revolver?
Yeah, saw them once, and they were amazing. It's the only time I ever saw Scott Weiland, which I'm upset I never saw STP.
Same here. Yeah, Scott Weiland. After he passed, I guess that was the end of Velvet Revolver, unfortunately. So yeah.
I know Corey Taylor said that he actually produced some songs with Velvet Revolver, but they've never been heard.
Gotcha. Well, next we had Stephen Jenkins. For those of you guys that don't know, he's the other singer that replaced Chris Cole. He was in the other tribute band, and of course they got in that little kerfuffle at the parking lot after the concert. And for a lot of people that don't know, he's the lead singer of the successful rock band Third Eye Blind. I'm not a big fan of Third Eye Blind, but I did know who he was, so we got that going on there. Next, we have this guy, Nick Katanis. I'm not sure if I do it, but he is the other guitar player in the tribute band Blood Pollution. The other guitar player that's not what's his name? I'm trying to blank right now. I'll come around on that one. But he is a former Black Label Society guitarist. Nick, he's actually has the role in Rockstar, and of course, Black Label Society is Zakk Wylde's band. We'll get to him.
He's from Pittsburgh originally, and now, from what I understand, in prison.
Yeah, he did some naughty things. Yes. Next, we have Blas Elias. He played the drummer for the Blood Pollution tribute band. And he, of course, was the guitarist for the very successful hair metal band Slaughter. And Kyle, if you remember, he was my drummer pick for our pick when we did our hair metal era supergroup draft for 1989 in our hair metal draft. He was my drummer.
so the truth is, we only drafted him because he was in Rockstar.
Well, yeah, and plus he's a good-looking guy too, But yeah, he's the one that famously said, we need to write our own. In order to make it in this business, you have to write your own tune. So yeah. Next, he played bass for Steel Dragons. That is Jeff Pilson. He was in the movie. Well, why not? As a bassist for such bands as Dokken, Dio, Foreigner, among other bands. He obviously plays bass, knows what he's doing, and he was the bass player in Steel Dragon. I remember him from Dokken and Dio, and now he's playing with Foreigner. Is he still playing with Foreigner, Mike? Can't remember.
He is. Yes, he is. Okay, he's been with them for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think he's been with Foreigner longer than anyone else, if I remember correctly.
Foreigner tribute band, because there's not one person in Foreigner who is an original member of Foreigner.
Pretty much, yeah. Good point. Yeah. Next, we have Zakk Wylde. Zakk Wylde, of course, played. He was the lead guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne. When I first saw Ozzy is when Zakk just recently formed, and I was just like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And of course, he's now the front man for Black Label Society. He's gone back. He's been back with Ozzy, and now he's in the Pantera band now, taking over for their late guitar player. Mike, have you seen the new Pantera yet? Because a friend of mine has. He said they're really good.
I have not. I think I'm gonna. I never saw Pantera. I think
Dimebag Darrell, of course, passed away tragically on stage when he was killed by a fan. And
I think I'm never going to see. I think I'm never going to see Pantera. I think I'm going to leave it that way. No hatred, nothing against Zach and what they're trying to do, which is keep the legacy alive, which I respect. But I don't think I would go see it. If they opened up for somebody, I would go see it.
You're not alone. I know people were split, but a friend of mine went and recently saw the show. It said it was fantastic and it was a great tribute, and everyone played well. Next, we have, as we start rounding out the list here, is Jason Bonham, who played drums, and he's rock royalty himself. He is the son of Led Zeppelin's late legendary drummer John Bonham. And he also had a band in the hair metal era called Bonham. Disregard for Timekeeping was the name of that album. I freaking love that album. Great song. But of course, he's one of the founding members and also this half of the songwriting duo in Steel Dragons. Now, Mike, these are all of the famous people that was mentioned in the article and stuff. Did you think this helped rounded out the fake band with real band members pretty well?
I think they brought in the right people. I thought that the people who they brought in gave it a legitimacy for a lot of things. They all looked like rock stars, that's for sure. They all for sure did.
Here's a picture, of course, of Blood Pollution, the tribute band there, playing in the basement of the theater. And this, of course, when Chris Cole finally gets hired as the Steel Dragon singer replacement of Bobby Beers. But guys, there's still another rock star too in this movie that you may not have known. This lady right here, not necessarily in the hair metal era, but this is Vitamin C, aka Colleen Ann Fitzpatrick. And if you're wondering, wait, who's Vitamin C? She was a pop star in the early 2000s. Do you remember this girl, Mike?
Yeah, I do. And I think a couple people in my school, a couple grades in my school used her song. She wrote some sort of graduation song. And
yes,
all the time at commencement ceremonies.
Yes, that was on her second album, I believe. Her first hit was a song called "Smile," a real poppy smile and poppy song, and she was also in the movie and did one of the songs for "Get Over It." Kyle, we mentioned that movie when we were doing the Wimbledon Couch Potato Theater, but she was in that film as well that starred Kirsten Dunst. And also, I have a confession here to make here, Mike. I hope you will not think of me differently, but Vitamin C is a guilty pleasure of mine, and I like her album.
I have no problem with that. There's a lot of pop stars I like. I got no problem with that.
Now, along with Rockstars, they also had some real, let's put it this way, former models that were playing Rockstar wives. And here we have someone that a lot of people may remember. We have Rachel Hunter as AC's wife, John Bonham. And in this scene in the limousine, there are several other famous ladies in this. We have three of the actresses who played the wives of Steel Dragon band members actually themselves been in romantic relationships with rock stars in real life. Rachel Hunter, of course, was in a relationship with Kip Winger. Alice Cooper from Alice Cooper Band, of course, and then he had his own band, Winger. And she had been married to Rod Stewart. Heidi Mark, Kirk's wife, had been married to Vince Neil of Motley Crue, and Carrie Stephen, Goad's wife, that's Zach's character, was the longtime girlfriend to Kiss's drummer Eric Carr until he passed away in 1991. Did you know this, Mike? Kyle?
I didn't know. I knew Rachel Hunter right away, but I didn't know the other ones.
You know how I am with redheads. I kind of just lose focus. But, Kevin, we're missing the most important part. Peter Gabriel stole all these wives.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
That was a funny line in the movie. Kyle, you brought this to my attention. There was someone on the stunt team Mr. Chad Stahelski was a member of the Rockstar stunt team. For those of you that don't know Chad Stahelski, he's a former stuntman turned director, and he has been directing all of the John Wick films. And there's a picture here of him and Keanu Reeves doing promotion, of course, for John Wick. But also, too, he is doing the reboot of Highlander. They're filming this year, apparently, with Henry Cavill as the lead in the new Highlander reboot. So I'm excited about that. And for those of you that don't know, Chad Stahelski, in his days of doing stunt work, doubled for Keanu Reeves, which is how that relationship started. But he is also the one that doubled for the late Brandon Lee, whom he had trained with at the Inosanto Academy for Martial Arts. After Brandon Lee's death, Chad was picked for his stunt photo double because he knew Lee, he knew how he moved, and he looked more like him than any other stuntman. So the scenes where you see the crow going back up to his apartment, that is Chad Stahelski as Brandon Lee's character. And of course, then he goes on to do The Matrix, and he has an extensive history in doing stunts, and now he has his own stunt academy as well. 8711 is one of them as well, and he's very, very well revered in that community as well. But Kyle, this brought up the question: when did we need a stunt? When did we need someone to cover for Mark Wahlberg's character? And well, I found this scene here where he falls off the stage. You know, he hurts himself, he gets banged up, and I'm like, well, maybe that was him. But no, I did a little more working here on the stunts here, and I found that Sean Graham has been a stunt double for Mark Wahlberg. So I believe he was the one that probably did this. And for those of you that don't know, Sean Graham is one of Hollywood's most working stuntmen. He's doubled for some of the biggest stars, including Brad Pitt, Tobey Maguire, Mark Wahlberg, Ewan McGregor, Billy Cudrup, Scott Conn, Sean William Scott, Jack Black, Colin Farrell, and Scott Speedman, just to name a few. He's won several awards, the Taurus World Stunt Awards. He also doubled for Mark Wahlberg in The Perfect Storm, and he also doubled Mark Wahlberg in Shooter as well. And he has won so many stunt awards, and he also is a world record holder for proudly representing the United States by shattering the world record for stunt driving. So I think I've solved the puzzle on that, Kyle.
Yeah, I think you got it.
All right, guys, here we are talking a little bit of Rockstar here. Let's get into the cast and the crew here. Movie is directed by Stephen Herek. For those of you that don't know his work, here are some films you may recognize. He did Mr. Holland's Opus, The Three Musketeers, 1993. He did Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in 89. He did Critters in 86. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead in 91, and The Mighty Ducks in 1992. And recently he's been busy. He's been the co-executive producer on the MacGyver TV series for 62 episodes. Mike, I'm sure you've seen some of those films.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Holland's Opus, I always liked. Mighty Ducks. I don't think I've ever seen the Mighty Ducks. I don't think I have either. I think I ever have. I mean, Bill and Ted's is a classic. Yeah, but and I don't think I've seen the new MacGyver either.
Kyle, what's that, Mike?
I don't think I ever saw the old MacGyver.
Oh God, that's a classic. Yeah,
I don't think I ever saw one episode. I don't think.
Well, we did a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure CPT, Kyle, as well as The Three Musketeers. So we've covered his films here on the Fandom Podcast Network.
This is one of the most eclectic lists of films that is all over the place in styles of films. When you look at this, you go from the Mighty Ducks to Critters to the Three Musketeers to Mr. Holland's Opus to Rockstar to Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. He has covered the gambit of different types of films. But here's the thing. I don't see a bad film in that list.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Well, the writer has an interesting past here, guys. This is John Stockwell. He wrote this script. He's an actor, director, producer. He's probably best known as an actor for his roles in Tom Cruise films like Losing It, but more famously in Top Gun 1986. Was he the pilot that got scared in the beginning and that helped him coach to land? Is that the character that he played, Kyle?
I'm thinking so.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, but
John Stockwell played Cougar. So yeah, that was him. He was the one who lost confidence at the beginning of the film.
And he also was in the original Christine film, which we talked about last year on our Time Warp show, Kyle, in the John Carpenter, Stephen King movie. But his directing credits also include Blue Crush in 2002, Into the Blue 2005, Turistas 2006. And John was a close friend of Andy Warhol and is mentioned frequently in the latter's Warhol Diaries. So there you go.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Weird stuff.
Doesn't seem like he's old enough.
Yeah.
And he obviously went through some kind of blue phase. I mean, you do Blue Crush and Into the Blue. Come on now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He had his blue period.
All right, guys, let's get into the cast here. Of course, we got Mark Wahlberg as Chris Izzy Cole, Jennifer Aniston as Emily, Dominic West plays Kurt Cuddy, the leader of Steel Dragon, and we may know him, of course, from other films, which we can get into once we get your thoughts on this here. We've already gone over the band members that were in this as well. The woman playing Tanya was Dagmara. I remember her from the movie Count of Monte Cristo, one from 2002. So we got a really interesting cast here, guys. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Kyle, what are your thoughts on the cast? We, of course, have Mark Wahlberg here in these pictures.
So, one, it's a phenomenal cast, but what's interesting about it is, too, this is Wahlberg and Aniston were on the rise, but they weren't Wahlberg and Aniston quite yet at this point.
Well, hold on. I want to push back a little bit here, especially on Aniston, because Aniston's been in Friends. She's blown up, and at this time, she was with Brad Pitt.
But she still hadn't really established herself in movies yet.
True.
Brad Pitt had originally been slated to play the Mark Wahlberg character.
Yeah, interesting.
And Aniston, this is post Office Space, right? But Office Space wasn't really a big hit. But
it got bigger on video later on. Yeah.
And Wahlberg was definitely on the rise fast because he had already done Three Kings, which got him a lot of attention. And then, but he and of course, you got Dominic West on the screen, who's just great. But one of my favorites in this film is actually Timothy Spall as Matt's the road manager.
Yeah, he's great. A lot of people know him, of course, recently from Harry Potter. He played Wormtail. But he's like that guy, English actor. He's been in so much stuff. Timothy Olyphant too. We'll bring him up as well. There's Timothy Olyphant. Love Timothy Olyphant as Rob. And who else have we got here? Oh, yep. Here's Dagmara.
Can we stop on Dagmara for just a minute? Because
sure. Yeah,
she is smoking hot in this movie, and yet you have that scene.
You mean when she pees standing up? Yes.
Yeah. And yet still incredibly sexy.
Which is one of those things that, like I said before, is never explained or addressed ever again. And I think they were going for that just craziness of the world.
Yes, everything was open. Everyone was doing everyone. But what's interesting is I noticed on a rewatch that I've never noticed when I watched this movie before, and I've watched it a lot of times. In the pictures that I have here of Dagmar's character, as I'm sorry, what's her character's name again? Tanya. Where she's waiting for Chris Cole and Emily at the airport, she introduces herself. And I've never really noticed this before, but you know how Chris knows everything about everyone in Steel Dragons. He says, "Oh, you used to date Bobby Beers." And as we know, Bobby Beers is gay. Yeah. So it's interesting how that whole thing kind of turns around there. Well, and I had to throw
that could have been a, not going too deep into it, but that could have been a publicity stunt. To try to hide Bobby Beers' sexuality.
This is true, which was done a lot back then. Kyle?
There is actually a line when they're all getting on the bus and you see her going on the bus and Matt says, yeah, and Tanya goes on the bus. We still haven't figured that out.
Yeah. Right. Yes. And I had to put this picture up. What's that, Mike?
What exactly was her job? Just was she Matt's assistant, or was she like what exactly was she?
I'm guessing assistant to the band, basically. The working with the band, Kurt Cuddy's the leader of the band, played by Dominic West. So, but I had to put this picture up where she's reading the Naughty magazine with Samantha Fox on the cover of this club magazine, which I thought was kind of funny. I want to go back to Dominic West here. I love him as Kurt Cuddy. And every time I think of Dominic West, I know he was in The Wire, and that was like probably his breakout role. I've never seen The Wire, to be honest with you, but the two roles
wait, time out. What?
Yeah, never seen The Wire. Yeah.
Oh,
What's funny is I actually own it. I bought it cheap on DVD, but I've never gotten down to marathon.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I
know.
I must have seen the entire series 8-9 times.
Yeah, I'd like to probably watch it too when it's streaming. It's probably streaming somewhere, I think on HBO or something. But
yeah, it's always on HBO
or Max, as it's called now. But the two films I always think of is Punisher Warzone, where he plays Jigsaw, and then he was in John Carter. Kyle, do you remember him?
Yes,
yeah.
I do. Kevin, there's two more people I want to shout out real quick too. How awesome were Michael Shamus Wiles and Beth Grant as Chris Cole's parents?
Oh yes, love them. They were such a supportive parents. Love that.
Yeah, I love it. They were great. Yeah.
But you got to give it. You got to give it up to the brother. What's his name again? The cop brother that was always giving him crap. Stephen Jenkins. Is that it? No, wait, not Stephen Jenkins. No. God, I'm drawing a blank right now. What's his name? Others here.
Also, I'm thinking it was Glenn Goulia from The Wedding.
Yes. It's what the heck is his name? Matthew Glave, Joe Cole Jr. Is that who that is? I guess. Yeah. Yes. He was in The Wedding Singer as the Drew Barrymore fiance. Last name Goulia. Julia Goulia would have been her name if they ended up getting married. So yeah, he was very funny in that. Mike, did you have any other comments on the cast?
No, I think it's a great cast. I think it's it's one of those movies where it's a lot of hey, I know that person. I know that person. It's a lot of that going on in that movie, especially last night when I watched it again. I thought, I forgot they were in it. I totally forgot Timothy Olyphant was in it. I totally forgot that.
Well before Raylan Givens.
Yes, yeah. So I got some movie info and budget here. It was filmed from March through June of 2000. Runtime is about an hour and 45 minutes. It was released on September 7th, 2001. The budget was about $57 million, but it only grossed $19 million worldwide. So it was a box office flop. Yeah. Unfortunately, but I think it definitely gained a lot of momentum at the video rental stores, of course, at the time. And I got some critical responses here, some reviews. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave it a 2.5 out of 4 stars. So that's halfway point, maybe a little bit better. He went from 1 to 4 stars. Kyle, I've always had an issue with this. Why not 1 to 5? But I guess it's just better than average in his mind. He says, quote, by the end of the film, I conceded yes, there was good performances and the period is well captured, but the movie didn't convince me of the feel and the flavor of its experiences. So there you go. When Judas Priest bassist Ian Hill was asked about his reaction to Rockstar in an interview in Pop Matters magazine, Hill responded, quote, well, it was a true work of fiction, When we heard about the production company were going to make a movie based as far as we knew about Ripper joining the band, we offered our help. We said, if there's anything you want us to know, talk to us at any time. And certainly our communication was cut off and that was it. And they went off and did their own tangent. Hill added, I mean, I quite enjoyed the movie. It was entertaining, Hill was quoted as saying it had nothing to do with Rob Halford, Ripper Owens, and Judas Priest. It's got nothing to do with that whatsoever. It was fiction, apart from the fact that local boy makes good. That was the only true aspect of the movie. Hill was quick to add, I watched it once. I don't have the urge to watch it again. I want to ask you this, Mike, because you touched on it earlier in the podcast here. Do you think it would have been better if it was basically a Ripper Owens bio and his character was named Ripper? Or do you think they made a better move just kind of doing the generic, fictional character based on the idea of Ripper?
I don't know a lot about the Ripper Owens story. I don't know if it would have been as exciting enough to put into a movie. I've always heard good things about Tim Ripper Owens, about he's just a good guy who got lucky and was a huge Judas Priest fan. But I don't know what happened to him once he got into Priest. I thought it just had a great run. Now he's still a rock star and still making music and joining bands and creating good music. But I don't know if his story would have been movie material.
Yeah,
it's almost like a hour-long documentary would be better, because I just don't think the story is there for him. You got to spruce it up a little bit like they did here.
I agree. What do you think, Kyle? Do you think they made the good move of kind of just inspired but made their own little fictional story?
I think they made the move that they felt they had to market this movie, and I just think that they knew the way they had to sell it was to tell the tale, show the things of over the top stories we've all heard through the years about the different hair metal bands and their exploits and everything like that. But then they used his story to kind of be the baseline through it, and then but they wrapped around all this fluff and packaging of other things with it to just create this kind of it's the one thing I will say about Rockstar. I actually a little bit agree with Roger Ebert. It's amazing performances. There's some really good things in it, but let's be honest with you. There's a lot of fluff on this film. There's a lot of we heard about this moment, we're going to reenact that. We heard about that moment, we're going to reenact that.
There's a lot of cliches in this.
Yeah,
in this
cliche
movie.
kind of thing. So this is not the deepest script, but I think for what they were doing with this film, because I really think with this film, they were trying to get that kind of drama comedy, almost play a little bit of a comedic side at times with it as well.
Yeah.
The whole Batmobile thing that they were trying to do and things like that. So I think they just said, you know what? We're not going to make this serious. We're going to have fun. Here's how we're going to do it.
Speaking of I won't put this there. Speaking of Batmobile scene, one of my favorite scenes in the film when they are racing for pink slips. And, if you're a fan of Batman, you have the money, you're going to get the Batmobile going up against, I'm guessing, a version of Magnum PI's Ferrari, Kirk Cuddy's Ferrari there. So, yeah. Well, this gets us into the next segment, guys. Let's talk about our favorite scenes and moments in the film. Let's start with you, Mike. What are some of your favorite scenes in the movie?
I think the one that I always liked is when they first get to LA and they're in his mansion, and you just see the kid vibe of it. The fan, he's a kid, he's a fan, going through all of his stuff. He even forgets why he's there, because he's just oogling.
He's looking at the Flying V guitar. He's looking at the vest, Bobby Beard,
and the boots and everything. Yeah. And then when he goes to the sound booth, I always thought that was a very cool scene. And when he's done singing and they are sitting there talking, and he's thinking, what's going on? And even the nervousness I felt of him when he first starts it and he misses his cue. The second time he asks for it over again, because he's just so blown away by this experience. I always thought that was my favorite scene in there. Just right before he gets, and then of course Dominic West's character goes on and said, "Do you want the gig then?" It's just a really cool scene.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, because this actually is my favorite scene in the film as well. Plus, you get the confrontation of Bobby Beers coming in, wondering what's going on, and him officially getting fired, and Bobby Beers calling those guys out, and he's calling, they're calling Bobby.
I can't imagine that this is the first time he's hearing about this. I mean, they're bringing him to audition, and then he's going to stumble upon it and find out he's not the band anymore. That doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, you have to throw this. You have to throw the reason why he's there to audition. That Bobby Beers is getting fired right now. And so, but I thought it played well. It was a good scene. Kyle, what are your favorite scenes in the film?
Well, I agree with you guys. That is probably my absolute favorite scene in the film, because it plays out so well. You got the fanboy aspect of it. He's so wrapped up in that. Then the nervousness, but then he hits it. And what I love too is how they pan and show the faces of other faces of band members when he's got it, and just the look they have there for that moment.
I just want to mention real quick, Kyle, the fact that you like it too, it says a lot, because this is where they really get to showcase the song "We All Die Young."
Yeah, and I love that. It's my favorite song in the movie.
Yeah, it's a great song, and that's what we're going to be covering. We'll be covering that more on the hair metal podcast of that and the origin of that song. But that song just kills it and it highlights it. Was there any other of your favorite scenes, Kyle?
Yeah, my other favorite scene is when he leaves the band. When he's on stage, he brings Sora on stage. They're singing, and then he goes and he has that conversation with Matt, and he's like, "I got to take a piss."
Gotta take the taking a piss scene. Yeah.
I mean, but it's a couple of things. There's actually some very genuine emotion there. I love the music that's playing in the background. It's this like guitar riff thing that's going on that I really like. But it's just like from the where that starts, where he's seeing what happened when Bobby saw him, and that circle repeating itself, but just him unlike Bobby, who kind of didn't realize it or got angry about it, he goes into this acceptance mode about it and realizes.
Yeah.
And I think that you see him kind of hit that. It's a moment Chris Cole completely grows up.
I think it's also, when I was talking before about it shows what a person he was. I think at that moment he starts to see this life isn't for me, and let's give it, because Bobby Beers in the beginning seems sort of pissed off when Chris is singing his parts, and then at the end where Chris looks at the fan, he's like, wow, that guy can really sing. So it shows the good side of it. Another favorite scene of mine was just as I was watching it last night, I reminisced, and I felt such a almost like a warm blanket that came over me when he's in the concert in the beginning, and they're in the front row, right on the stage, right on the stage. And I thought, what a thing that people who go to concerts now have lost. That even the front row is 10 feet away from the stage.
Yeah.
Where back in 85, it was like you could reach out and grab them, because if they came to the end of the stage, it's something that's missing in music taste. That's such barrier.
Agreed. Yeah.
The fans and the artists.
Kyle, I wanted to touch on something you said about the I gotta take a piss scene when he decides to let Thor take over and him take off. What a catalyst that leads to that scene that I also actually like is when during the break, he actually decides to write some of stuff for Steel Dragon and come up with a cover of an album. And you just see like Kurt Cuddy and AC and everyone kind of going back and forth. Like, okay, we got to give him the real talk here. We've already written the songs for the band, dude. We're the songwriters. You got to play our parts, sing our parts, and then, they introduce that one song and he doesn't sing it right away. But that's kind of like the catalyst of like, you know what? I'm not going to find my true happiness by just playing their music all the time without feeling the creative juices flow. And I like how that leads to the I got to take a piss moment.
Well, and the whole conversation with him and Matt's in the bar. Where
yes.
Tells a story about and that's where that generates from. And you hear, I didn't catch it for the first couple times I saw it, but then I caught it when Chris goes, I owe Rob an apology.
Yeah.
There's
another scene that I like too, where Bonham, who's playing the drummer, is getting the blood transfusion, and he's also telling him, "Look, you got to leave the girl. You got to let her go. You got to do your thing on this tour, and maybe find her later on." And he's how his liver isn't what it used to be, and so he's having to do this stuff. And it's just the tolls of touring, the tolls of Rockstar is taking you on your body and stuff. I thought that was another cool scene. But I did have a question, guys. Obviously they show all of the Rockstar moments, whether it's driving a motorcycle through the hallway and breaking down doors or throwing TVs out, the famous throwing TVs out of hotels. But I got this one here of nailing all the furniture to the wall upside down scene. That takes a lot of work. I don't know how Rockstars, is that based on a true story? Does anyone know? And how are they sober enough to try to figure that out and do it?
Well, I think you had to have done it while you were drinking. You could have done it while you were. It just
seems like a lot of work. That poor maid comes and goes.
It does seem like a heck of a lot of work that you would have to do. That's one of the things in the movie where there was a lot of head scratchers. That they finished a concert and they go right to that nightclub, and I was like, what time is this nightclub open till? Because they're coming out of a concert. So, and there's a lot of questions and again, I know what it is. It's them trying to show the chaos and the anarchy that goes along with these lives. But a lot of times it was when you're in the moment watching it, when I first watched it, I thought, oh, that's all fine. Then when you see it again and you're thinking, well, that just can't happen.
Yeah, when you see it with a different lens, you're wondering, like, like, how's this happening? But I have probably the most important question of this podcast for you guys. I have to ask this, and I had to put it here in the middle of the show here. So, as you know, Chris's band, Blood Pollution, the Steel Dragon tribute band, plays in the basement of a porn theater, basically. And the movies that are playing there are Das Booty, My Favorite Rear, and All That Jizz. My question to you guys is, if you were to go to one of these films, which one would it be? Kyle, I'm going to start with you.
You got to rock Das Booty. Come on.
Now, keep in mind, porn films at this time were pretty much like acting out a parody version of these famous films.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mike, which one would it be for you? Kyle's got Das Booty.
I mean, it's a submarine movie that you'd have to go. Is it German? Is it during World War II? I would not go. Or My Favorite Rear. Is it based on My Favorite? Yeah, I mean, I really have to see which one.
Yeah, it's based on that '83 film, My Favorite Year, with Peter O'Toole, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
I would. I love that movie, by the way, too, because but not the original. I'd probably go Das Booty.
Okay. Yeah. I asked my wife this question. She says, "Yeah, I really like All That Jazz, so I'm going to go with All That Jizz."
I think it really comes down to what I think it really comes down to which movie that they're parodying you like the most.
Yeah. Okay. The real question is, I just had to throw that one out there, is where does this movie Rockstar, this one right here I'm talking about, where does this movie rank in your rock movie genre, whether they be parody movies or, serious attempts at showing a biop like The Doors or something like that? Kyle, I want to start with you. Where does this movie, what are some of your other favorite rock movies?
I'd probably put this somewhere in the 5 to 10 range. It's fun. It's entertaining, but I think there's been some, legitimate serious, like the Doors is a great film. Obviously, one of Val Kilmer's greatest performances. You got Spinal Tap. And then there's some movies. Do you consider them rock movies, or do you there's some of those movies that kind of fall in a couple different things, but I think Rockstar is great. And that, like I said, I probably put it closer to like maybe 5, 6 on the list, because of all the people who are in it. But right. I don't think it's pinnacle of rock films, because especially when you go back into like the 70s and the early 80s with some of those films that came out that representing that. I think it's, but what I do think is it might be the best portrayal to kind of give somebody a taste of that time as an entry. It's an entryway film into that world.
Yeah, because recently we've had Elvis, that biop as well, and so they're obviously very popular. Mike, where does Rockstar, fall in your category, and what are some of your other favorites?
I would think in that 5 to 10 range too. I think the absolute best Rockstar movie ever was Almost Famous.
Yeah.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
Good one. Yeah.
And you want to talk about, like Kyle said, really nailing down that era. Almost Famous really does. And I think it's because Cameron Crowe was there and lived it.
Speaking of, by the way, if you haven't seen it yet on Amazon, Daisy Jones and the Six is also a really good biop TV series. It's inspired by Fleetwood Mac, basically. It's a Fleetwood Mac style band during the 70s with male and female artists, and they have relationships and they get toxic and stuff like that. But anyway, go ahead.
I think there's not too many rock movies that there's the Doors, but when you think about rock movies, I think more of Spinal Tap, but it's for a completely different reason. I also think
that counts, obviously. Yeah.
I think Decline of the Western Civilization.
Ooh,
is amazing. It is really.
Sid and Nancy could also be there as well. That's a good one.
You know what I thought was a great documentary, although it kind of isn't rock, is the Amy Winehouse documentary. I
want to see that. Yeah, I want to see that.
It's so unbelievably good and sad and frustrating and irritating, and it is so many emotions through the whole thing. But I think the best rock because you just never can get it right. So documentaries, I think, are the way to go. And Almost Famous, like I said, got it. I think the closest. But other than that, I think you got to stick with documentaries.
I think you're right. It's hard to get it right. Yes, there were still some issues with the Elvis movie, but overall it was pretty good. But documentaries are great. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Mike, because one of my favorite TV series of all time was in the late 90s, early 2000s was VH1's Behind the Music.
Yeah.
Got a quick hour documentary on all the popular bands at the time. And they did a great job documenting that. But for me, the two films that I have been rewatching but they're parodies, but I've been rewatching, of course, is the classic Spinal Tap. And I've become a huge fan of Pop Star, the movie that was the takeoff of the Justin Bieber film. Call it Pop Star Never Stop Stopping with the Lonely Boy guys from SNL. That movie is hilarious.
Yeah, you know what else was great? Was the Dirt movie was good too, although it was a bit too short.
I love the Dirt too. Yeah. But Spinal Tap is the best. Can we just say Spinal Tap is one of the best?
Wait. Can I throw in a video starring Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee?
You could. I guess what is that, a documentary? So yeah.
I think with Spinal Tap, I think one of the things that made it as good as it is I believe it was Steven Tyler or Joe Perry said that they could not bring themselves to watch it because they felt that it was just so unbelievably true to life.
It's painfully truthful is what I've heard. So
Okay. Let me ask a question since I have you two here. We're kind of on this topic because it's something I've always kind of wondered. And Kevin, we've had a little bit. Heavy Metal, the movie. Can you consider that a rock movie because of the music that's in it? A lot of it not this genre. No, it's just got a good rock soundtrack. That is an adult illustrated movie, just like it was based on the.
And I think it was based off of that magazine, and I don't think the magazine
illustrated fantasy magazine, Heavy Metal, yeah.
And I don't think the magazine had anything to do with the genre of music. I don't think it did.
Well, I think there was some inspiration pulled from.
Yeah, there's definitely some inspiration on there. Yeah, definitely. So guys, the next thing I just want to mention briefly was, of course, the Rockstar came out on DVD and on VHS. I believe there's some Blu-rays out there, probably overseas. I don't have my hands on it. I just got the original DVD here. Mike, did you ever own the DVD?
Never did. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think every time I saw it was on TV.
Well, yeah, it did because it had a lot of rotation. You're right about that. But the film was released on DVD and VHS January 22nd, 2002 by Warner Brothers. But Kyle, did you ever have the DVD?
No, I think I own it on digital, but can you bring that picture up again, Kevin? Because I have sometimes
of the DVD.
Of the DVD. I'm just and the cover art and the movie poster.
Okay, hold on, Kyle, hold on. I want to save that for my pet peeve section. Can we wait on that?
Yeah,
because there's something there's a point I want to bring up about it. So.
Okay, let's wait for the pet peeve section, which is a new segment we have here on Couch Potato Theater. So yeah, we'll definitely hit on that. But as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be doing a crossover on the soundtrack. A lot of the times on Couch Potato Theater, we do discuss the soundtrack, especially if it had a big impact, but we will be discussing the Rockstar soundtrack and, of course, all of the artists that were real rock stars that contributed to that as well. This is the Fandom Podcast Network, talking a little bit of Rockstar here, guys. And as we always do, we have some trivia. Let's go into trivia. So some movie trivia here I have. Of course, Tim Ripper Owens, of whom the movie's based, now owns a bar and restaurant in Akron, Ohio, and has various concerts of local bands as well as classic stars, including himself. The bar was featured on Bar Rescue in 2011. I never watched Bar Rescue. Have you heard about this, Mike?
I've seen that show a couple of times, but I've not seen that episode. It's actually not a bad show. I mean, it's a ripoff of Kitchen Nightmares, but
okay.
But it's much faker than Kitchen Nightmares. But I've not seen that episode.
Here is, of course, a picture I showed earlier of Ripper Owens with the Judas Priest members.
I'm still in shock that realizing that Bar Rescue has been around that long.
Yeah, that's true. So we did give a little love, of course, to the real musicians that played members of the band members in this movie, but also the majority of the musicians in the movie are actual musicians played by 80s rockers, including the singing voice for Mark Wahlberg's characters provided by Steelheart's frontman. See if I can get this right here. Miljenko Matijevic. Am I butchering that, Mike?
That's about as good as I could get.
I think he goes by Mike as well.
I think that guy needs a stage name.
Yeah. He, of course, did the a lot of the songs for Steel Dragons. And, of course, Steelheart, best known as the song we mentioned earlier for the 1991 hit power ballad, I'll Never Let You Go. And the final number was sung by Brian Vander Ark of the Verve Pipe. And Jeff Scott Soto, singer of Talisman, sang with Yngwie Malmsteen. And Journey provided the voice of Jason Fleming's character of Bobby Beers. And then we have here Nick Zalauser. Do you know who he is? Well, you may not, but he is a famous rock photographer. He plays the photographer in the scene where Chris does his first photo shoot with Steel Dragon. And Ozzy Osbourne, what's that?
I saw that in the credits last night, and I saw his name, and I immediately jumped out at me, and I said, "What was he in?" And then I realized what it was.
Yeah. Ozzy Osbourne was at the concert filming, as well as Nikki Sixx and Alice Cooper and many other rock legends, where a 12-step meeting was being held for extras working on the film. Now, the biggest what if here, guys, I got to get your opinion on this. Brad Pitt was initially offered the role of Chris Cole. How different a movie would this have been if it was Brad Pitt? Kyle, I want to start with you.
It is a completely different movie if it's Brad Pitt, because this is what makes this movie work, is the fact that there's something about Mark Wahlberg that he's got some of that guy next door quality. He could be your neighbor. And that's one of the things that makes Chris Cole work. He's such a nice guy. And Mark Wahlberg always pulls off the nice guy so well. Brad Pitt he's even when you try to glam him down, he's a superstar. And I don't think he could have pulled off the local kid makes good aspect of this and some of the innocence that was needed for the Chris Cole character.
Yeah,
what about you, Mike? What do you think?
I just don't see Brad Pitt in this role at all. I just don't. I don't think he can pull it off. Mark had some, or Mark Wahlberg. I was gonna say he had success with as a singer being Marky Mark, so he kind of played the part a little bit. I just can't, he had some stage presence when you would see him in those footage. I don't think Brad Pitt could have pulled off that stage presence. I like Brad Pitt. He's definitely a good actor, but I just don't think he can pull this off.
Yeah, I'd like, there's an alternate universe where I would have liked to have seen that. But as you touched on just now, Mike, fortunately for Mark Wahlberg, the other trivia I have here is that he has hung out with Rockstars during his Rockstar days, Marky Mark days, and he hung out with Motley Crue's lead singer Vince Neil. To know the drill, he says, quote, "I just took a crash course. I went and hung out with all these guys," he says. "I was researching the part pretty early on, actually in the middle of shooting A Perfect Storm in 2000. I just went to as many concerts as I could and hung out with these guys." And there is a tie to Spinal Tap here, guys. Rooftop locale used for the press conference that introduces Chris Izzy Cole as Steel Dragon's new lead singer and announces their forthcoming tour with him is the same rooftop that was used for the final tour ending press conference and record company party for the fictional heavy metal band This Is Spinal Tap. So there you go.
Where they decided on their future of writing a musical on Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. Exactly. And the entrance hall of Kurt Cuddy's mansion is the same set that was used for Chilton Academy on the Gilmore Girls that came out in 2000. So there you go. Now, I have a question for you, Mike. We talked about the filming locations. It was filmed mostly in and around Washington. But of course, it takes place first in Pittsburgh. I was looking at his brother's cop car and his badges and his patches. Is Keystone, Pennsylvania, a real city in and around Pittsburgh?
No, Keystone. I'd have to see the badge again, but Pennsylvania is the Keystone State. So it may,
okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
I may have. It may be just a reference to Pennsylvania being the Keystone State. They do show a license plate in there, and it is a Pennsylvania license plate.
Okay.
Where I think the license plate said Steel Dragon, and it is a Pennsylvania license plate. So they were like you said, they were probably there to do some stuff in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. I don't remember his cop car, but I know his cop uniform was very close to a cop uniform
Okay.
at that time.
So there's no city called Keystone. It's just known as the Keystone State.
Nothing I know. No.
Okay. As we teased earlier, this is our pet peeve segment. Do you have any issues with the movie? And I'm going to start off, guys. And Kyle, I think you wanted to talk about it too. The movie poster, the main movie poster. And I'm going to show my DVD here, right here. I've always had a pet peeve with this actual poster representing the film, because to me, this is when he stops being the rock star and he goes to the grunge era and he's slinging the bag and the guitar over his back. Now, I found some alternate posters and DVD art, and I'm showing that picture here next to the original poster here, where he's actually in his Steel Dragon's outfit, and it says Rockstar, rock fan to rock god. And you're also showcasing Jennifer Aniston on the cover as well. I've never liked the original poster of this, guys. I would prefer to have the other alternate poster where he's the actual rock star. Your thoughts on this, Mike?
Well, I think they probably went with it because of the time it was released. I mean, he
just at the tail end of the grunge era.
Yeah, so I think they were going for more than that, more for that than if they would have shown him as a glammed up, because at this time that this came out, hair metal and that era was sort of laughed at. And it's before the resurgence of everybody being cool again in hair metal. So I think they probably said, let's show him as a grunge kind of guy. I wonder how many people went into the movie theater thinking that and then were completely shocked by what happened.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I didn't even think about that. Kyle, your thoughts on the poster?
I very much agree with you guys. The thing about it is I look at the marketing. It's what, like Mike said, it's the marketing of the film at the time. Let's go with this look that a lot of people are going with these days. It's the old bait and switch.
Yeah.
There is something about this poster that kind of just how with the crowd and just the picture of him works if you don't know that the movie's actually about hair metal.
Yeah.
You could sell me on, oh, well, it's about him being grunge in Seattle. Oh, cool. Got that. But no, you go in and you find out it's hair metal. And I think it's another reason why this movie kind of had its issues in the theaters, because I think a lot of people went into this going, this was not what I was expecting.
It's funny too.
Even the ads were like, they didn't play up the hair metal side of this in the marketing.
Yes, you're right. And there's a reason for that, obviously, because there's still kind of, you have the tail end of the grunge, and, you also had rap metal becoming a thing at this time, right before nu metal, you had rap metal. But I did want to mention something real quick. I didn't mention at the top of the show was that during this time, I was living in Virginia. I was working for a game company. And while I was at my desk, I was listening to internet radio. Remember when that was becoming a thing, where and all of these stations were coming on, and there was this hair metal station. And this is when my nostalgia for hair metal started to come back. This is when I started going on eBay and buying back all my CDs that I had to sell to move to Virginia in the late 90s, And so I was repurchasing all of the stuff that I didn't save. I did save a bunch of it, but this is when I was kind of like, the nostalgia for me was hitting between 2000 and 2003 and 4. And this is when this movie came out. And that's why this movie hit such a chord with me. Mike, were you listening to internet radio? And do you remember this at all?
I don't I don't remember a lot of internet radio. I was
you would go to a website basically.
Yeah.
It was like early streaming, but you would just click on it was just radio that was playing certain styles of music.
No, I think when I was listening to just when I would just I know I wasn't listening to radio because the radio stations in Pittsburgh at that time were just so awful. I think I was already listening to music on cable. You had the cable music channel.
I remember that. Yeah.
What genre you wanted. I think that's when
the channels were like 3001 up to 4000. Yeah. Kyle, do you remember internet radio?
Oh yeah, very, very much so. Because again, that was a rough time in just regular radio because every station was either pure country. No offense to country.
Or you had all the pop like boy bands and girl bands,
and that's when everybody and their brother was
Christina Aguilera. Yeah.
But you also had everybody and their brother trying to rip off Howard Stern on their morning shows.
Yeah, very true. You had to have all the shock jockey stuff going on. Well, yeah. Anyway, the poster, I'm not a fan of it. I prefer to have the more contemporary, I guess, version of seeing him as a rock star. But I have another pet peeve, guys. I want to know if you feel the same. Why does Chris Izzy Cole? Why does he have to start off with the English accent? Why does he have to imitate Bobby Beers? Why can't he just? I mean, he's already dressing like it, which I'll touch on in a second. But why does he? And then he gives up on the accent. He's like, he pulls a Kevin Costner. It's the weirdest thing, Kyle.
I actually think this is actually kind of maybe even a little bit of Spinal Tap tribute, kind of and tribute to other things, where a guy goes into a role and here he is. He's again, it comes back to his idol worship of Bobby and Steel Dragons. So he starts off with this English accent, but the minute he starts singing, it goes right out the door because there's like, yeah, there's no way that guy has an English accent. Did
that bug you at all?
As he gets more famous, he gives up on it because he doesn't need it.
Yeah. Did that ever bug you at all, Mike?
I when I watched it last night, I totally forgot that he does the English accent at the press conference. I think it was more of him trying to seem authentic. Because, but like the other guys in the band don't have an English accent either. Like only
Kurt Cuddy does, and Bonham's
the only one who does. He's the only one who does. So
Bonham does too. Actually, he lets that slip. Yeah, he lets, especially when he's getting a blood transfusion, you can hear it there.
But wasn't the blood transfusion Matt's? That was Matt's.
No, that was Jeff Pilson's character. I'm sorry, Bonham's character. Sorry, the drummer.
I thought it was Matt's.
No,
it was Matt's. So I mean, I didn't really have a problem with it. I thought it was just like he didn't know who he wanted to be. I think he was trying to be more authentic and maybe thought that if he had an English accent like Bobby Beers does, that it would seem more authentic and be more real.
Okay. The other thing that kind of bugged me too, after it's never bugged me before until I've recently kind of done rewatching, is why didn't he dress differently out of the gate or even a little bit later? And why didn't the rest of the band change up their wardrobe more often? They always have like Kurt Cuddy always had that long kind of gray coat. Yeah. And then like you saw Jeff Pilson's character, the bass player, and Bonham's character, they always wore those red leather pants, but they wore them all the time. Or if you look at like the Rockstars, obviously when they're doing photo shoots, those last a lot longer. But when you saw them on concert and other stuff, you saw them like change stuff up, all the time. You would see them in different interviews wearing different things. Why do you think they kind of wore the same thing all the time?
Budget.
Probably
budget. I mean, when I read that the movie was $59 million, I thought, oh my Lord, I didn't know it was that much. But I would guess budget, and they probably shot all that stuff at one time.
Yeah, so probably.
Probably that. The biggest pet peeve that I had with it was one scene where Chris gets kicked out of the band, where they bring in the new singer. Early in the movie, and him and Jennifer Aniston's character are sitting in the car, and she's basically telling him about how she believes in him. And
is this when she's talking about the song he wrote for him?
Yeah, he wrote for her
a long time ago.
Yeah, when he was 15, and then he says to her, he ripped those lyrics off; they weren't actually his. And you see her like sort of become crushed because she thought that he wrote it for her. and then it just sort of fades to black as it's almost going to a commercial, and it's never and then all of a sudden the next day he gets the phone call and they're jet setting off to LA, and it's never really resolved because
that's a good point.
She has to be absolutely crushed to know that she's been carrying around these song lyrics for.
You feel like there's a cut scene there or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and there's no resolution to that at all. I know it's the movie's trying to make you realize that he does not have his own identity, that everything he's ever had was sort of a cover, but it doesn't really resolve her pain of seeing and seeing him in that light of he's been lying to me this whole entire time. That it wasn't.
That's a good point.
And it's never resolved. And then when he becomes a rock star, it's never brought up ever again.
Good point. Again. Kyle, did you have any other pet peeves?
Yeah, I actually have a Jennifer Aniston pet peeve for this film.
Uh-oh. Bring it on.
Jennifer Aniston, through a lot of this film, feels more in a way like she's mothering Chris in the aspect of, and she just feels like she's on a different level of maturity than everybody else in this film. And at times it really kind of makes her feel out of place in this film. And you add into the fact that this is the era of women in hair metal, and there's a lot of times where she feels like she's dressed up in the wrong decade. And it just felt like they didn't.
Do you have an example of a certain scene or something?
Like when she goes to the hotel in Seattle to.
Okay. Yeah.
It's very bohemian there. Very bohemian.
Yeah, and it just as much as I love Jennifer Aniston, she didn't feel like what you would expect for the hair metal girlfriend to be. And I know they had the cliche ones, but even for her being smarter and more intelligent and more mature, she didn't quite have that full look that you would expect from something. And again, maybe, and it just felt like, okay, she's the adult in the room with a bunch of kids.
This is true, and it's not like, I think she avoided kind of dressing like the groupie thing on purpose, which I kind of liked. I liked when the when she's like being asked about her breast, are they real? And I think that's kind of was an inside joke because that's always been a thing. If you watch Friends, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's always cold on set. But yeah, I see your point, Kyle. She's definitely seemed more mature than almost everyone else. But
it's that whole thing, she when he gets fired and she says to the
she was the manager of the band.
Yeah,
so,
she said the talent just walked out of the room. You always stay with the talent. And then there's another scene where and so she's got it all, like she knows what's going on. She sticks out like a sore thumb in the limo. And then there's another scene where he goes on stage for the first time and Matt says to her, go over into the hen house.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I think I'll go and watch it with his family. So she never wants to stoop down and be pigeonholed into that stereotype of what a rock star's girlfriend is.
I think in reality, though, I kind of have a feeling she probably would have gone to the hen house. I just, that was just the thing that you did, but I could be wrong there. But so guys, I have a new segment here on Couch Potato Theater. I thought it'd be kind of fun. And since on the network of Fandom Podcast Network, we always have What If, and it's popular in Marvel, and apparently it's going to be happening in some other properties as well. I have the What If segment here on Couch Potato Theater. Now, normally, if you listen to Couch Potato Theater, we have the 5x5 question at the end of the podcast. He says, what do you think happens either 5 minutes at the end of the movie? What happens 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, or 5 years? But instead, I have some other stuff here for you, and this is tailored to this movie. I want to ask you guys something. So, towards the end of the film, when Mark Wahlberg's character, Chris, decides to leave the band in the middle of the performance, they take a piss moment. He brings up young Thor, played by Miles Kennedy. I want to ask you guys, how long is Thor's stint with Steel Dragon? Does it end the next day, or do they decide to give him a shot? What do you think, Mike?
I don't think he makes it through the concert.
Yeah.
I think, because that's another strange part of the movie. They bring up another guy on stage, and then did they play the entire show with the new guy? Like,
Yeah, because he knows all the songs.
he knows all the songs. I guess you can. But I would think that a third lead singer, sometimes a second lead singer is a kiss of death for a band. A third lead singer is got. I mean, you're Gary Cerrone at this point, right?
Okay.
So,
Nice. Ouch.
So I think that at that point
he doesn't last through the rest of the
doesn't last very
set.
long. No.
Okay, Kyle, what about you? How long does Thor last with Steel Dragon?
They get through the concert because they're not going to cancel the concert right then and there and put a lot of egg on their face. But yeah, after the concert, they're like, they don't even let him in the limo to go with them. They are pissed. And it's like, we're not taking this guy who betrayed us.
I like that they touch on that at the end of the film, where you have the drummer talking about like, I never want to see that guy again, or something like that. So yeah.
So I think now what probably happens is Thor's noticed by some other band who decides to bring him in. But
all right, okay. So the other what if question I have, guys, is how does Chris's Mark Wahlberg's character, does his grunge era band with his old buddy Rob, who is played by Timothy Oliphant and was in, of course, the Blood Pollution tribute band, does their band have any success in the 90s, Mike? Or are they just a house band playing, clubs all the time?
I think it's just a house band. I think that's what, maybe Rob doesn't want that, but I think Chris is just sort of like, let's just make our own music and just be fine here.
Okay.
I can't imagine that, again, trying to put a real life spin on it. I can't imagine that a guy who's singing in a Judas Priest type band then switches over to acoustic grunge and is successful there too. I mean, that's good. That is a hard turn to make,
especially during that time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Kiss tried to bring out a grunge album. I mean, was that Carnival of Souls. I mean, it's not going to work out. It's just not.
Yeah, that's true.
But he'll be happy playing in that coffee house for the rest of his life.
What's funny though is the grunge era popular bands that started making popularity, getting popular, is when you look back and you find old pictures of the earlier bands were hair metal era, and there they looked apart, Yeah. Kyle, what about you? Do you think Chris's grunge era band has any success?
They maybe get one hit based off of his name and fame, but the truth of the matter is, here's how he's going to be seen. He's going to be seen as a sellout by the hair metal fan community for going to Seattle being grunge, and he's never going to be accepted by the grunge community because you were showboat hair metal. He's going to be stuck in freaking limbo because he's not going to get accepted fully by either fan base. Like I said, he probably sneaks one hit out early on, but they just become they have their sound, they do their thing. But he will never reach the heights that he reached in Steel Dragon.
Yeah. I didn't answer the question with Thor's stint in Steel Dragon. I don't think it lasts long at all. I think this is where Steel Dragon starts to kind of like realize like we need to find a different thing going on here if we're going to keep this momentum going.
That's when they go back to Bobby Beers.
Well, hold on to that thought. So I think you're kind of right, Kyle. I think that Chris Cole, even though when you look at the flyer that his girlfriend takes off the telephone, it's like hand done, there's nothing fancy about it. I think something does happen because I think there was a few bands that were able, or members were able to leave old hair metal stuff and try to find some success in the 90s era. And I think maybe he does find some success, but not like what Steel Dragon was. And it probably also peters out in the late 90s. Kyle.
I want to bring up another point here. I should have mentioned this in the pet peeves. He's got money. It's not like he's Mr. Broke.
he might have shot his wad, dude. He probably, he's one of those rock stars like famously in Quiet Riot, where Frankie Manali had to like sell his mom's house or whatever it was,
And I don't know how much money he would have. I mean, it's obviously a hired gun. He doesn't
Yeah.
write any of it. He doesn't write any of the lyrics or any of the songs.
Not getting any royalties off
Not
that.
getting any royalties. So he's just getting paid just straight up as a hired gun. I mean, he's a lead singer, so that helps.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine he's a multi-millionaire.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
No, but he's not broke either.
All right. Next question, guys. We got to keep this moving here. Next question. What happens with Chris and Emily, Jennifer Aniston's character relationship in Seattle? Does it peter out or does it last a little bit? Kyle?
I think it lasts. I mean, I think these are two people who have a pretty strong connection, and I think it lasts because I think he's grown up, he's matured, and I think he's actually pursuing what he at the end of the day finally pursuing what he wants for himself, not what is somebody else's dream. And I think that's what she always wanted for him in the long run, was for him to pursue his own abilities and have faith in himself, and he finally has that. And I think that brings them some peace. But so I think they probably make it through.
Okay. What do you think, Mike? Do you think they can end soon, or do you think it lasts a little longer?
I think it lasts. I mean, regardless of whether his grunge era band finds success or not, he knows that she was with him way before he turned into who he turned into. So I think he's going to see that as she liked me. She's the one true one who stuck by me, and she liked me before all this stuff went down. So he knows that she likes him for him.
I think I'm with you guys. I think that lasts for a while. I'm not sure how long, but I think that they have a connection that they've had ever since, high school and school. And I think that they've gone through the trials, and I like to think that maybe they had a kid or something like that, which I'm going to combine the last two questions here because they kind of run into each other here. This is the big question here, guys. What happens to Chris beyond the grunge era 90s? Does he actually live, or does he find drugs again and, passes away like Lane Staley did? A lot of these grunge artists did. Or if he does survive, does he go solo? Does he get into acting? Does he have another venture? But more importantly, guys, when does he reunite with Steel Dragon in the future when the hair metal era nostalgia hits about 15 to 20 years later? Or, as you teased a little earlier, Mike, do they decide to reunite with Bobby Beers instead, now that we're in an era where it's more acceptable and there's tolerance, and it's not a big deal, kind of like what we found out about Rob Halford, So I'm going to start with you, Mike. What do you think? What happens to Chris?
So I think he lives. I think he's fine. They don't really go too much into how much drugs he was using in the movie.
That Seattle scene, he was strung out pretty bad. He wasn't remembering what he said like a minute here.
Yeah,
it was.
I'm going to go on a limb and say he becomes an actor and makes a really bad remake of Planet of the Apes. Years over.
A really bad remake with awesome effects, though.
Yes, yeah. No, I think he does. I think I don't know what he's going to do. Work at Guitar Center and be happy the rest of his life, but I don't like I said. I don't see the band succeeding. I think he's just fine being who he is and him finding his way in life. I think he lives.
Gotcha. Kyle, what do you think? What happens? Oh, wait. Hold on. So you don't think he reunites with Steel Dragon then? You think?
No, I don't think that. No, because and I'll tell you why. He never released an album with them, does he? I mean, does he ever release an album? So because
he doesn't.
Yeah. So
why would he never come? It's implied that he does when he's recording that new song. We just only see him finally leave the band.
What's right after that, right?
Yeah, but I'm assuming he did record one album. Like I think he was a John Corabi situation.
Yes,
because he was in the recording booth, he was forced to sing what they sang, and then they go on tour, and that's when he leaves.
That's the album. Yeah, so I would, but I don't think that they're ever going to reunite with him again. But they're going to reunite with Bobby Pierce. That's what they're going to do. But a la Judas Priest, and then the Chris era will just be sort of thrown on the dustbin.
Interesting. Kyle, what about you? What do you think happens to Chris? Does he live? Does he go solo? Does he reunite with Steel Dragon? What do you think?
He lives. He maybe does a solo project that's kind of more of a pet project. Maybe he does a movie or something like that. But what I see is him actually kind of settling down, and I could see him, being a music teacher
Yeah.
somewhere or something like that. And then when the hair metal nostalgia kicks in, maybe he makes a few appearances at some conventions and things like that. Does he reunite with Steel Dragon? No chance, because when that nostalgia hits, it's reunite with the original member Bobby Beers and capitalize upon that. Because let's be honest with you, Izzy's time with Steel Dragon was probably much shorter than Bobby Beers' time with Steel Dragon was when it's all said and done. So he's probably more of a blip in the Steel Dragon history than he is of
Right.
significance.
He's John.
What?
He's John Corabi. He's John Corabi. He's Gary Sharon. That's what his time in there is. It's very short, very brief, and I don't think that there's going to be much nostalgia for him in moving forward.
I like to think that he has a little bit better success than those guys you just mentioned, but in a different way. I think because he has such a his characters has a fantastic voice. Mike's, from Steel Dragon. And I think that is showcased. I think he might try a solo thing for a while. But I also think he probably gets into session work as well, and maybe even producing. And he finds out where the money's made. Maybe he starts doing Desmond Child stuff, and he starts writing music for other artists, and that gets him in performing with other people. I see him being a guest judge on like American Idol, something funny like that as well. I think, hold on a sec, Kyle. Hold on a sec. I think Bobby Beers does come back, but I think something happens and it just doesn't last long. I like to see a world somewhere that maybe even just for like a quick one-off show or something, that he does come back with Steel Dragon. They mend fences. Maybe they do a project together. Maybe he does something with some of the other members or something like that. But I would like to see in a world that he does come back and reunite, but it's not like that's what he does for the rest of his career. He's made his money writing songs for other people. He proved himself to Steel Dragon. Steel Dragon realizes he's this entity on his own. And I think he's in the music industry doing something. Kyle, what were you going to say?
If nothing else, he has one kick-ass episode of Behind the Music.
Yeah, this is very true. And you know what? It would also make a good movie. So yeah, definitely.
That's what he does. He sells his life story as a movie.
Yeah, that could probably be it. And then he could sail off to the sunset there, and the Planet of the Apes remake won't hurt him. So,
yeah, there you go. My wife, I asked my wife these questions. She's like, I don't know. I think he goes off into a hip hop band or something like that.
Yeah.
Really?
There's some vibrations in the air. That's all I'm going to say.
I think he could probably even adapt into rap metal. Who knows? So yeah. Okay, guys. Final questions here. Do you think you would have loved to have seen a sequel to this, or would you like it remade, a TV series? And what's your final thoughts on this film? Let's start with you, Mike.
I don't think a sequel. Remake. I mean, could you remake it as a grunge or a new metal thing? I guess you could.
Yeah.
I think it's just, this is sort of a movie that was a snapshot in time that you can't remake it. You can't do anything with it. A TV series, that could work. Of the three, I would say that one would be the most likely.
Yeah. What about you, Kyle?
I agree with Mike. I think a TV series, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be like a sequel to Rockstar or anything like that, but I think you find some way, and you don't even have to imply that he's Chris Cole, but you find a way to put Mark Wahlberg in, where he has a scene where he talks to maybe the young person who would be the new lead in the TV series, and just kind of have it be one of those cameos that isn't blatant, but you get what they're going from. I think they would have fun with that. As far as the movie itself, I think it's a fun snapshot of a certain period of time in music. you don't take it seriously, but one thing you do pull out of this is amazing cast that's in it, and some great performances. And
Yeah.
I think that's what you pull out of this. And that this film is kind of very much like Wimbledon. It's just fun, and you
Yeah.
just watch it and go for the ride.
Well said. I completely agree with you, Kyle. It brings me back. That's what the important thing this movie does. It brings me back to that time, that nostalgia. My favorite time of looking back on my favorite music, and a lot of my favorite movies are in the 80s, and which is one of the things that we celebrate here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Doing the hair metal podcast with you, Mike, has been great, talking about this time. And that's why this movie hits a certain chord with me personally. As for like a sequel or remake, I kind of like to see a TV series. I mean, Mark Wahlberg has been producing, TV series like, Entourage and some other things. I thought it'd be kind of fun if we did like a limited TV series where he produces it and they kind of recast it, because I think that when you do a rock star, local boy becomes a rock star situation, I think it fits best in the 80s because of the excess and how the MTV changed everything, and how it was promoted and how it was produced and how it became formulaic, and what has become with a lot of these bands. And the other thing too is that nostalgia for us is happening right now, because a lot of these bands are reuniting or going back out on tour. But the sad part of it too is you still have the strife with band members. And you have Skid Row without Sebastian Bach. You have Sebastian Bach touring by himself without Skid Row. You have Jack Russell's Great White, not Great White, and Queensryche, who's not touring with Jeff Tate. So there's a lot of that going on. And the sad thing too is a lot of these guys you may not see in 10 years because they can't tour anymore, or their health is, going to not allow them to do it. So being able to relive that and retell a story like that, I would like to see on probably a television, so you can dive into a little bit longer. Kyle.
Another reason why I think it works better as television is it actually does something that Mike mentioned earlier. You can dive into some of the other characters.
Yes. Well, as we teased earlier, guys, make sure you check out the upcoming episode of Hair Metal. Well, Mike, my co-host of the Hair Metal podcast, will be talking about the soundtrack and diving deep into that, because when it comes down to it, that's a pretty rocking album, and it was pretty much a good metal album. So we'll get into that more, because there's a lot to talk about. Of course, though, this is Rockstar Couch Potato Theater, and let's go ahead and close out with some contact information. This is the Fandom Podcast Network, and if you're watching us on YouTube, we much appreciate that. If you're listening to this, please make sure you check it out on YouTube and give us a subscribe, give us a share and a like, and leave some comments. We'd appreciate that. The Fandom Podcast Network, of course, is on YouTube. Our master feed for all of our audio podcasts can be found on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. Fandom Podcast Network is also on Facebook. You can find us on all of your major podcast platforms. And you can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. And we are also on Instagram and X, formerly Twitter. My name is Kevin. I am on X, Instagram, Threads, and also on Letterboxd at Spartan_Phoenix. Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me on X at AKyleW. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. And of course, all over the Fandom Podcast Network Facebook pages, keeping you updated. And you can also, if you want to look me up, hashtag gotta take a piss.
Well said. And Mike, you, of course, are my co-host on the Hair Metal podcast. We appreciate you joining the network. If people want to reach out to you, how can they do so?
Yeah, you can always reach me on the Fandom Podcast Network through there. And hashtag no red lapels.
No red lapels, yes. And also, too, for those of you that don't know, we have a Hair Metal podcast Facebook group. Mike is on there as well, and we're always sharing hair metal era stuff. And I just recently saw Living Color getting ready to post some more pictures on that concert as well. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for suggesting this idea of doing the crossover.
Oh, absolutely. And I got to ask, Kevin, are you, since you did In Living Color, are you following the Cult of Personality?
Yes, I am.
but I just want to say before we close out, because I'm going to actually quote what is one of my favorite songs in this movie, yet it's not a hair metal song. The show is over. Close the storybook. There will be no encore.
Ah, yes. Well said. Mike, thank you as always. I'm so happy to have you with us on the Fandom Podcast Network, brother.
Happy to have you. Happy to be here. Thank you for always including me on these. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. All right, guys. Until next time, we will see you on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.